What's up, guys, and welcome back to Prepare to Read. My name is Marcos, and I'm here with my good friend Jacob. It's been a while since we recorded our last episode. Just to give you guys a little background, my wife and I had our first baby, so things have been a little bit crazy over on this end, but we're happy to be back talking about Way of Kings.
Yeah, super excited, man. I think we were rolling, and then we kind of had seen it coming, and we're like, well, maybe we'll still be able to do it right after, and it was like, no, not not gonna happen. I think that was a unrealistic expectation of us, but we're back, and we've seen some support while we're gone. Like, actually, a lot of support. We talked about it. What was it, like 2 weeks ago? Of hey, people are still watching. We have people commenting and joining the Discord. So big shout outs to you guys. We really appreciate it, and kind of motivated us to get back. So looking forward to it.
Yeah, me too. We're moving along, just like you said, and I think we're about 60% through this book now. So I'm ready to get to kind of the really big climax type parts. So today, if you're following along, we're reading chapters 37 through 39, and I'm ready to jump into it if you are, Jacob.
Yes, sir. Lead us off.
Okay. So starting with chapter 37, Sides. We're back with Kaladin, and this is 5.5 years ago, so we're seeing another flashback. We start off by Cal there with his mother in the kitchen, and his little brother Tien, who I tore apart in a previous episode, even though he was a 5-year-old, shows him a pretty stone that he has found. We already know Tien is kind of, I don't know, Cal's soft spot, sure. So in this moment, Cal leaves with a carriage from Rashon that's coming to pick up his father, and he insists on coming along. And when he comes with him, he's going over to meet with City Lord Wistelo. And Leonard and Cal go for it.
Can I stop you right here? Because I have some stuff.
Yeah.
2 things. One, this is like the millionth time Tien has brought up this freaking rock, I'm pretty sure. And I have it underlined here. Like, he keeps talking about it changing colors when you look at it from different sides and in the light. I'm like, this has to be important, right? I don't know what type of foreshadowing it is, but he's on to something. I feel like he's got to be. Don't know what it is, but I just want to call it out because it's come up multiple times to where I felt like, hey, I need to call this out. And then second thing, diving a little bit deeper, I'm obsessed with Spren. Like, I think they're the secret to this whole freaking universe in book 1. That's my theory. We get a lot of Spren, like, lore. I don't know if it's like, hey, would he accept this as fact? But his mom tells him, like, no, Spren's in everything. Like, everything always has Spren. And he's like, even in us? And she's like, well, you're human. Like, you have a soul. But yeah, the parts that make you up have Spren in them. And, like, very much like atoms is what it seems like. Like, they are the building blocks of life, as they say in biology. The
midichlorians.
Yeah, there you go. Yeah.
Do you think that the Spren kind of are more of a, like, the common folk type of an idea? Or, well, no, we see them, we observe them, but I haven't really heard, not that I can remember, kind of like the more like higher up people talking about Spren.
Well, Shallan, if I were to say,
oh yeah,
like,
she does, yeah.
But I feel like Kaladin does see a disproportionate amount of them, and I think it's kind of like, you know, they say with ghosts, where some people are more sensitive to the paranormal, if you believe in that stuff, than others. I think there are probably people who are more susceptible to Spren, and if that's like, hey, they show themselves in front of them, or they're just more perceivable of them. I feel like that's got to be it. But
interesting.
Spren are accepted as a phenomena, and like we had that whole thing. I forget his name, but in the interludes where that guy was studying them, I'm obsessed. I'm obsessed with Spren. Secret of the universe here. And then before we move on, one quick shout out. I love this. I underlined this quote. It's talking about Spren. It goes, it's his mom talking. Spren appear when something changes, when fear appears, or when it begins to rain. They are the heart of change, and therefore the heart of all things. Banger of a line. And I think, like, I've been kind of critical sometimes with Sanderson's writing. I enjoy it overall. Like, I really enjoy it. But there's not often times where I feel like he has a line that I'm like, damn, dude, that hits hard. That's one of them. That was like very well put, very pretty. Loved it.
Yeah. Nice. All right. Well, feel free to chime in if something comes up that you want to add, or maybe something that I missed. But from here, they continue to go and meet with Wistia, and Rashon is offering him this settlement. He's basically saying, because if we remember, the Bright Lord from before had left Cal a bunch of money, and the money was supposed to be used to go to med school, pretty much, right? So Rashon is basically telling him, like, look, I know you got all this money. You give me, I think it's 1/10, or is it 9/10?
I can't remember the exact number.
But he's basically saying, look, I keep some, and then you can have
Yeah.
some. And this is kind of a really big predicament for Kaladin, and also seeing how his dad handles the situation. This idea of, like, kind of the higher ups, like, I don't know, trying to muscle them. So Cal's kind of struggling with this, and he ends up getting dismissed from the table. So Cal goes to the kitchen, and when he goes to the kitchen, he ends up meeting Laurel and Rashon's son, Relir. I don't know if that's how you pronounce it. But in this moment, he starts to treat Cal like crap. And Cal's kind of like, what the heck? I haven't seen Laurel in a while. And we know that Laurel used to kind of be like his crush. And he's kind of looking at Laurel like, why are you letting him talk to me like this? Like, you know me. Like, we grew up together. And yeah, this guy's just talking super bad down at Cal. And he pretty much tells him, like, go get my food. And
hold on. Well, I'm sorry. But, like, and then she jumps in on that too, which was like, damn, dude, stab in the heart. Crazy.
Yeah. No, yeah, definitely a low moment for him. And then Kaladin's like, nah, man, I'm not getting you your food. And Laurel then at that point is like, all right, like, just leave him alone. And I believe she kind of like says, like, leave him alone, like he doesn't matter. Like, she's just completely dismissing him. And in that moment, Kaladin basically changes his mind about what he wants to do with his future, and he decides again that he wants to be a surgeon, not a soldier. Yeah. So, anything you want to add from that?
Oh no, I do have a lot. So
Go for it.
this isn't going to be so much about the story, but I related to this chapter a lot, and maybe you can too. There's a line that his dad says. I won't get like.
So we're talking about when he was with his dad, not when he's with Laurel.
Well, it's mostly when he's with Laurel and the son, but I just want to shout out this line with his dad where he tells Kaladin, like, there's a time, because he's like telling him about, hey, like, Kaladin's like, why don't we leave now? Like, we can go to, or he's like, we can go. His dad's like, we'll go with you to where you go surgery. It was Carbranth. Yeah, and Kaladin's like, why don't we leave yet? And his dad tells him, like, there's a tie between a man's home and his heart. I've cared for these people. And, you know, whatever, a couple of years ago, moving away from home, I stayed at home forever. That line was another one that hit me, you know what I mean? So it related very much to that one. And then going on to where Kaladin's, you know, getting bullied, he's feeling like he's struggling with keeping up with the conversation. And like you said, he changes, like, okay, he goes from wanting to be a soldier to being a surgeon to become more educated and understand how the light eyes work. And he says, the way he describes it was that the light eyes speak in, like, with knots, and, like, you know, subtext is what he's getting at, and meanings behind the words or whatever, right?
Yeah.
And I don't know if
I would imagine like they kind of talk like, I don't know, politicians, you know?
Yes.
Like, not very clear.
Exactly. Like vague and probably passive aggressive, you know, meaning within meaning. And I really felt that, like, you know, once I started getting into corporate America, I've shared it with you a lot, where, you know, people tell you stuff and you, at first I was taking it at face value, and then I learned, like, that's not really what they're saying, you know? Like, that wasn't like where I came from and my background, and, you know, we had similar backgrounds. I was like, that wasn't really a thing, having to decipher what someone said. Like, if someone was being mean to you, someone was being mean to you. Like, you knew it right away. and coming into
Might
like
just
the
be
court.
part of growing up.
It might, where people are a little bit more cautious of how they're saying
The office
things.
politics and all that.
Yeah, but for a while I was like, man, I feel like I'm not picking up on like the communication here. So I really related to that. So reading this chapter right now, I was like, damn, man, like same, Kaladin, I feel you.
Yeah. So do you think him deciding he wants to be a surgeon, besides the education aspect, do you also think it might be kind of getting thrown around by Laurel, and then also him struggling a bit with like the situations with his dad, that him becoming a surgeon is kind of his way of leaving home, kind of being like, I don't really like home anymore, like I want to leave, and this is my,
Well,
well, he would leave as a soldier too, I guess. So
I think it's both about him like educating himself. I think he kind of talks about in this chapter too of like, am I silly enough to think that I can go be finish being a surgeon or whatever, and then come back and convince Laurel to be with me or whatever.
yeah,
But I also think he's starting to grow up, and he recognizes, hey, me being a soldier gets me out of here, but me going and being a surgeon can get my family out of here. And I think
yeah,
he's starting to realize that and feels a little guilty of, hey, my soldier route is selfish in his mind.
mm-hmm.
I think that's where it's coming from. And I think he kind of says, I might be misquoting, but he grew up that day or whatever. He started feeling like, and he asked his dad at the end, oh, we'll get there, but he wants to be called Kaladin because it sounds like a man's name.
Because it's a man's name. Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, since you brought it up, I think this next part kind of also adds to Kaladin growing up, I guess maturing, is his dad kind of throws a predicament at him of kind of revealing that the spheres that they had been working with actually were stolen.
Yeah.
So this whole time, Kaladin was like, my dad did not steal these spheres. Like, you guys are just trying to take them from us. And then Dad's like, nah, they were. I stole them. But he would have given them to us. So he was kind of faced with, like, a bit of a gray area. And I think it was a big moment, like you said, of him growing up and kind of becoming a man now. And I think everybody, I can't think of an actual example, but kind of goes through that, where when you get older, you start realizing that a lot of adults kind of like operate in some gray areas at times. They're not just like always right.
Yeah, and you start learning that you have to at some point, right? Like you're going to do stuff that's going to upset some people, or some people might view as incorrect, but he's doing what's best for his family. And I also think not just that, but it showed he started understanding that there's other ways to be brave, not just going and fighting a war for somebody else. Like, he brings up several times about his father, confronting the people and showing them the spheres and being like, take them, take them. And then also he brings up a lot during this chapter of his father looking, what's his name, Roshan, in the eyes, like not being afraid of, oh, you have a higher status, I'm going to speak my mind, I'm going to refuse to not eat at the side table that you wanted me to eat at. And
that is Kaladin kind of a
really
big part of Kaladin's character, is like he doesn't suck up to like those above him. He's always very like level playing field, no matter who you are.
Yep. So. I put here, I think this is where we start seeing the hatred of Light Eyes and Kaladin. Like this is the chapter of where that happens, because I think even with that betrayal of Laurel, who personally I have her here, where I think she's playing a part to keep herself safe. She understands. She was always more savvy to these things. Like she understood that her and Kaladin were supposed to get married before he did. Like that was the arrangement.
And also considering what she went through, she's probably realizing like, I mean, I don't have much to offer anymore. I am going to be married off, and I need to make sure that happens. That's like my job right now. So.
Yeah, that's how she survives. And I think she, like you said, she kind of took him away from bullying Kaladin. So I think she's still looking out for him, but she knows how she needs to operate to continue to not like to be alive,
Yeah, but Kaladin doesn't need that. It kind of shows Kaladin that's not the girl you want. But
I don't know. Anyway. I'm curious to see what happens with Laurel. I don't think it's going to be good. but I there's a great character in there somewhere. I don't know if he'll ever like. I don't know if that's the route he wants to go down to explore more of her. Like, hey, when Kaladin grows up, that's gone. But I mean, that's like a Game of Thrones situation for her. Like she's in a rough spot. That could be a very dark story. But also, I like her. I think when she was younger, like I told you, she was like way more clever about things. I think she's handling the situation. It reminds me very much of like Sansa, but if Sansa knew what she was doing when her dad died, not so much like being upset.
Yeah, she's kind of thrown into a much more like I had to grow up quick. Like my parents died, I had to survive. Whereas Kaladin is kind of barely figuring that stuff out. So yeah.
Yep.
But anything else for that chapter?
Not so much. No.
Okay. So we're gonna still stay with Kaladin, moving into chapter 38, Invisiger.
Yeah,
Invisiger.
That's as good as.
Do you know what that means?
So I do have a note here where throughout the chapter you start learning about, or you get name drops of them with some slight lore. So the way I would read it is Invisiger, so like envision, and I think like maybe someone who can see the future. That's all I got. I think it's a made up word if that's what you're asking.
Okay.
May I read I forget what they're called, text before the chapter?
Yeah.
Okay. Born from darkness, they bear its taint still, marked upon their bodies, much as the fire marks their souls. I consider Gahash son Navamis a trustworthy source, though I'm not certain about this translation. Find the original quote in the 14th book of Seld and retranslate it myself, perhaps. I don't know if I've talked about this before, but I'm pretty sure these are Yasna's quotes or Yasna's notes from her reading all of these folk tales that Shallan had noticed or whatever. But anyways, continue. I love these little intro things.
Okay. Yeah, I think you wanted to do an episode just on those at some point. So yeah, we could come back to that. But we're going to stick kind of with your Spren love. Because this one kind of starts with a big Spren heavy scene. So we're with Kaladin. If you remember, he got thrown around like a flag recently, and he's recovering from that. So yeah, he's kind of becoming like this, almost like this martyr to Bridgefort, because people were not supposed to survive from that. And if we remember from the previous chapters, it also kind of introduced like a political issue of they were trying to use this as a means of offing Kaladin, and Kaladin's not dead. So it's like, oof, well, we can't kill him now. Like, they're in a predicament too. So Kaladin got taken down and Bridgefort is starting to take care of him. But right now he's kind of, I guess, has like fever. He's fighting these lucid dreams and he's seeing death Spren. And while he's seeing these Spren, Syl is starting to appear as like a white light with a sword made of light. And she's fighting off the death Spren, warding them off. And Kaladin, he's just trying to survive. And he doesn't want to fail Bridgefort. And he starts to think about all the people that he kind of let down. And yeah, he notices more death Spren each time he is lucid to see them. And yeah, that's kind of where things are at with Kaladin. Did you have a comment on kind of his situation?
So two things I have marked here. Going to Spren, he says, and Kaladin's pretty knowledgeable, so I take this as fact, that only dying people could see death Spren. So again, we learn that the Spren can choose who to reveal themselves to. So that is true. It's very true. I'll take that as fact in my Spren lore notebook.
Do they describe how the death Spren look? I don't remember. Let me see if there's
I don't know.
some fan art or something.
Let's see.
Like little spiders. This person drew them as like a little twisted spider thing.
Yeah, I don't know if they say it here. I don't know. But anyways, it does say their voices were whispers. That sounds terrifying. The other thing that keeps getting brought up multiple times now, is he's questioning like about how bridgemen are meant to die. And he's like, why would an army employ men who are supposed to die? And I don't know if I'm missing something here. I don't know either. Like, I think I've talked about this before where I'm like, it makes no sense to me. And I enjoy being as lost as Kaladin is. So I've thought about it and I'm like, okay, maybe it's this, maybe it's that.
I thought they had already addressed that it was because they're using them as bait.
I mean, they kind of are, but like we already knew that. So when Kaladin is like, what's this whole point? Like, you get me? I'm like, is there something more? But anyway, I underlined it because he keeps saying that. Why would an army employ men who are supposed to die? Because he recognizes, like, damn, like now we lost the battle because we did what we did, and whatever, everything.
Yeah. So do you think these, with Syl fighting off these deaths, Bren, do you think it's just a vision, or do you think it sounds like something is actually happening?
I think something's happening. I don't. Syl's not like something's going on with Syl and Kaladin. Like she's always there. Yeah, she's doing something. I don't know what yet, but I can't deny that. In my head, right? What I see in the future of this book is that like our main characters are going to have like a spren attached to them. That's what I'm guessing with this. So yeah, I definitely think like that's really happening.
Okay. Cool. All right. No comment on that.
Yeah, don't comment.
We'll
don't comment.
So,
read and find out.
Yeah, exactly. If you hurry up and finish the book, maybe you'll know.
Oh.
All right. So
I was waiting on you, big dog.
Anyway, so still kind of in Kaladin's realm of things. We now cut to Tef's point of view. And in this case, they're trying to keep guard of Kaladin because they're scared that they're going to try to assassinate him. They also, I think, are a little weary just about people seeing him. Because, yeah, it was a really weird situation that he survived, and it's kind of stirring things up. And Tef, what he does is he pretty much gets 3 diamond spheres, and I believe these are actually like charged, and he puts them in Kaladin's hand. And he notices that Kaladin is pretty much like breathing in and absorbing the stormlight that was inside of the spheres.
So I'm going to stop right here. We're going to rewind a little bit. So, one, I'm going to go back to something you brought up earlier. You had brought up that Kaladin's survival has become like a political issue, which I think there's truth to it. But then you read about Teft and what he's talking about, and this is a spiritual thing. Like I think that's what we're going to. We're coming to. People are gonna start thinking this guy's a god, you know. And he talks about it. So this is where we get the title drop of the Envisagers. And Teft,
he was a child of the Envisagers.
Yeah, he says like he rejected them, that their deaths were on him, which I don't know what that means. But it's like he's expecting this. What it sounds like to me is he's like
it's like he's heard the prophecies.
Yes, exactly.
He sees the signs.
He's like, damn, it's like the
Mob
whole
Deep.
Yeah, Paul Atreides thing where it's like, man, he knows our ways as if he was born of them, and he knows that it's not like, oh, hey, Kaladin, here's your money. It's like, hey, I'm gonna give you these spheres, and I'm expecting you to do something with these. And like, yeah, he definitely, like you said, has heard of prophecy or something. So Teft became extremely interesting to me very fast.
Yeah.
But
and I mean, his theories are proven right because, I mean, the stormlight ends up pretty much healing Kaladin's body. So he's like, oh my gosh, this is happening.
Yes. And then what does Teft think? He thinks he needs to tell the Envisagers. He thought, I need to. But the Envisagers were gone, dead because what he had done. If there were others, he had no idea how to locate them. And
Interesting.
then
So
the
we almost
next,
have like a what would that word be? Like somebody who didn't believe in this and is now like converting over to like, oh, I didn't think this stuff was true, but it is true.
yeah, he was a heretic.
Yeah.
Now he knows. But so now here's one of my crackpot theories. I think Shallan's one.
You think
I think
Shallan's an Invisiter?
yep. So again,
Okay.
if I break this down where it's like, I think
Because she's had a lot of religious undertones to kind of her beliefs.
well, she sees stuff. She like draws stuff in her drawings that if we
Yeah, that's
read it in the
creepy.
next chapter, yeah, that she's just like not aware of. And
Yeah,
I'm
that's
like,
scary.
okay, is this some like is she having premonitions and the way she like
She
expresses
just
them
gets
is
up.
through her drawings? Maybe. She might be, but like I said, like breaking it down, okay, these people had some sort of prophecy, if we want to call it that. It's a fantasy book, so I'm calling it a prophecy. So I'm like, okay, envision, again, fortune tellers, prophecy, makes sense. We get this part, which we'll talk about next chapter, where Kaladin sees someone lying on the floor in a fancy room dead. I'm going to guess that either that has happened simultaneously or is about to happen. So I'm like, okay, she's
Interesting.
seeing stuff. Now, like, again, we learn about them, and then next chapter, Shallan. Brandon doesn't strike me as someone to like very meticulous on the way he's planning the stuff.
Yeah.
That's just a crackpot theory there.
Okay. Interesting. Well, I guess we can move on to that chapter. Kind of not too much else. Just Tef kind of realizes, like, all right, these spheres are healing Kaladin, and he decides I'm going to slowly kind of sneak him in and heal him slowly so that people don't catch on that like something's going on with him. So yeah, so chapter 29, Burned into Her. Pretty dramatic title. And
Yeah.
now we're with Shallan. And Shallan's sitting in her room and she's drawing the deaths of the four robbers that happened 3 years ago. Or 3 nights ago. 3 years ago. Three
Whoa.
nights ago. Yeah, so she's just really struggling kind of with that whole situation and trying to understand some of like the philosophy, considering Yasna's actions and the reasonings of why she might have done what she had done. And she also starts to kind of worry about her own like actions. Yeah. Is stealing the Soulcasters right? And how does she feel about that? And her mind starts to wonder while she's drawing. And when she looks back at it, she freaks out because she sees that she had drawn an image of a room with a richly dressed man lying in a pool of blood. So, whoa. And from there, she panics. She hurries from the room and runs into a servant who informs her that one of her span reeds is flashing and hands it over to her. So,
Okay, I'm gonna
you
stop
wanna
there because I have
chime
a
in?
lot. Yeah. One, I'm gonna ask you: do you know who that person is that's dead on the floor?
Yeah,
You do, and he remembers everybody. He remembers.
I remember.
That's crazy. We have a first. The 4 months off did you well.
Yeah.
Okay, interesting. I'm gonna guess it's the king where she's staying. That's my guess right now.
So you think it's like a premonition of the future?
I don't know, because what we've seen is that she has like photographic memory, and if she sees something, she can draw it.
Mm-hmm.
But I'm like, okay, if that's true, then she must have seen it. But then, like, where would she have seen it? Like, okay, like the rules are she must see it and then she can draw it. So, like that one thing she saw with the weird head that was standing behind the king. Okay, like I can see. Maybe it wasn't there to the naked eye, but in her weird subconscious, she saw it. But this, I'm like, okay, where would she have seen it? Whatever. So yes, I think it's a premonition for that reason. Yeah, I feel like maybe in the next Shallan chapter or something. That I think it's the king. That's what I'm thinking. I think it's the king where she's at right now, dead.
Okay.
I think we're gonna see the consequence of that in this book. I hope. And then
So I have a question for you.
Go for it.
Do you think this has to do with the soulcaster. Do you think Yasna knows she took the soulcaster?
Do I think Yasna knows?
Yeah.
100%. I don't think there's a doubt in my mind that she knows. I think Yasna just strikes me as someone who's too smart. And then, like, think about it, because this is the other stuff I want to talk to. She goes out and she performs this, like, morally gray act, right? Which, I mean, really wasn't that morally gray, in my opinion. But in Shallan's worldview, it was. You know, it was bad. And she's like, go back and tell me, read up all the philosophies and logic, and you come back and tell me what you think of the situation. And I feel like she knows. Like, she has to know. She's showing her, like, hey, like, this was a good thing to do. This was an okay thing to do. Like, in your conscience, you should be okay with it.
You think she's almost kind of making her stealing the soulcaster, kind of like comparing, like, well, Yasna killed 4 people. I just stole her thing. Like, she's kind of reasoning to make what she did okay?
No, I think she's trying to teach her that, like we just talked about with Kaladin, sometimes you have to do things that maybe that action is bad, but the intention,
so the greater good.
Yeah, the greater good, which, I mean, there's a whole debate on, like, what's really good. I think when you're killing, like, you know, thugs and rapists, like, that's not that hard of a question. But yeah, I think that's what she's trying to teach her. And we know Yasna's not the most, I guess, religiously correct in this world, because I think that's, like, she's called a heretic and all that stuff. And I think she's trying to tell Shallan that this is the real world. Like, if you're going to do what you're going to do, you need to be okay with this. And I think she already knows, because you're going to tell me that the lady that was using her soulcaster for, like, paperweights hasn't used it since she stole it? Like, that's just, I don't buy it. Not true. So I think she knows. And I think Yasna's going to teach her how to use it.
Okay. All right. Well, this next section kind of brings up some more internal struggle for Shallan. Is her brother Balat is the one who was trying to contact her via Spanreed. And Balat's kind of like, all right, you got the soulcaster, you need to come back home now. And Shallan's like, well, nobody knows how to use it. Like, I need to stick around a bit more, see if I can figure it out. And then Balat informs her that the friends of her father have been visiting again. So kind of ominous. Doesn't really go into too much about that. But Shallan's kind of struggling with, do I go back? Do I not go back? I need to maybe figure out how to use this, because the guy that knew how to use it, I believe he's dead now. So there's not really anybody back home that could use it unless she figures it out. And back home, she wouldn't have somebody who knows how to use it around to learn from.
I don't think Shallan wants to go back home. I think,
yeah, I would agree. I think, yeah, she doesn't want to go back home.
she loves where
learning.
she's at right now. Yeah, with Yasna, like that. She's learning so much. She's learning about the world. She's learning about herself. Like, I think she's done with what was going on at home, and yeah, and she knows, like, I think she knows in her heart that if there's anybody who's going to teach her how to use this, it's going to be Yasna.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and that's kind of where we leave off, is Shallan kind of juggling with that of, like, should I save my family? Should I stay here and continue my studies? What do I do with this soulcaster now? And yeah, that's kind of where we leave off with her.
Yep. Yeah. I don't know, man. I really enjoy Shallan's chapters. I think she has the most intriguing story for me. I know you say that I guess I'm in the minority when it comes to that.
From my understanding, yeah. I think most of the people don't really love Shallan stuff. So.
No,
but it makes sense considering the types of books you tend to like and the way you think. I think that's why you kind of connect with her a bit more.
Yeah, I guess maybe. I think Brandon does a great job of making, like, reading the books, like, cool. Like, I mean, he talked about, I mean, it was really short, but, like, the philosophies and stuff like that. And it's just like, man, like, it's a different type of world building more than just like, oh, the plants are like this and this is like this. Like, we're getting into what the ideologies are, the subsects of them, and you know,
Yeah.
how it, like we've learned about the religion and stuff. It's just really cool. And I want to point this out. I don't think he meant this, but one of the philosophies is called starkness, and it's like, I guess the core belief is kill or be killed. I'm like, is that a nod to like all the Starks dying in Game of Thrones? You know, what's that about? But yeah, no, this was these are short chapters. I'm not gonna lie. I think for a while we've been getting some meaty ones.
Yeah, I
But
think
I
they're
mean,
gonna have to get shorter considering how many more there are left and how much is
yeah,
left of the
we don't
book.
have too much of the book.
There's 75 chapters and we're barely on 40.
Yeah, I only have like 500 pages left of this book.
Yeah,
This book is so long.
they're
I'm
all
barely
long.
like recognizing that right now.
I'm kind of throwing around just a little about what else I'm reading. Right now I'm finishing up a Star Wars book actually called Darth Plagueis. It's one of like the Legends books. But I'm contemplating what to read after that. And I still haven't started Wind and Truth. So I was thinking about starting that one.
Fake fan.
But it's so long. I think it's 69 hours or something crazy.
In the audiobook.
Yeah. So I'm like, oof, that's a commitment.
That's
right
like
there.
Like a month worth of your drives to work.
Yeah.
A little bit more.
Mm-hmm. So yeah, throwing around what I'm gonna read after. Or I might just read Way of Kings, but
Yeah, hop on over. Everybody tell Marcus to read Way of Kings, because I think when he's up to speed on what we're reading, our conversations.
I'm not like, I don't remember. I don't know what you're talking about. Who's
no,
Kaladin?
you did good on this one. Then we had like
I did read these.
Oh, you did?
Yeah,
oh, okay.
I had read these chapters because, yeah, we had read these, and I think the next one, and then we were gonna talk about it, but we never recorded. So.
Yeah,
because you were getting, I think, tired. I remember we talked, and you were like, yeah, like I don't know, like things just haven't. I don't know, things weren't happening that you wanted happening, and it sounded like you were getting a little like burned out. I guess I don't know.
I love what we do. Like, I think taking the time and, letting me like annotate and stuff like that, amazing. As I've, I guess, entered this world of Brandon Sanderson, and like he's on YouTube and stuff like that, I guess he does say like, I would not recommend someone start with Way of Kings. He's like, I think a lot of people read it because they've read my other books and I have that buy-in from them of, hey, you know what to expect. But he's like, man, you start with Way of Kings, like he always brings it up, like, what, there's like 3 prologues or whatever.
Yeah.
And I think I did feel that, where it's like, hey man, we took a long time to get going. And I've heard even from people at work of like, oh man, the Sanderlanche, it's coming, don't worry. So I am looking forward to that. I wouldn't say like, I love this format that we're doing. So not that I was burned out, but I did have expectations of, hey man, like I need what I was saying was I need the like pin to drop and shit to hit the fan. And I still feel that way, like but then like I just said, there's 500 more pages. So I'm like, 500 pages of like downhill craziness is that's a crazy expectation,
Yeah. And the next book I think is paced really well. That book, I devoured that thing. Like it just flies. This one, I think it's doing a lot more of the legwork. So,
yeah, no, I'm really interested. I want to get back to Dalinar. We've left him for a while. I think he was in a very interesting spot where the walls were closing in on him very fast, and then we kind of just left him. And I was getting really hooked into that. I've loved all of Shallan. I can't complain. I think she started off a little weird. We kind of made fun of her, but she's really turned a corner for me. Kaladin's the only one where I'm like, okay, we've had not constant, but several. Okay, we have like a slow, sad portion of Kaladin, which cool. And then okay, like now we're doing the Bridge 4 stuff, and then it's like now he's sick again. So we've gone through a lot of like ups and downs with him, which isn't a bad thing. It's just he's not my favorite, and he's the one that this book is all about. So I don't ever get to the chapters and I'm like, oh god, like we're in Kaladin's chapters, they just don't go as fast to me as like Dalinar's and Shallan's were. But
yeah. Ooh, we got a good chapter coming up.
I'm excited. Dude, I'm looking forward to it.
It's gonna be like a couple weeks till we get to that one.
Oh, okay. This guy.
What? It is.
I thought this was like the next reading chapter.
No. Chapter 45 is the one I'm thinking. So not this upcoming video, but probably the one after that will. So not next week, but the week after.
Gotcha. Well, I wanted to talk about some of the stuff I've been reading because this got me back into reading. For a while, I wasn't reading too much. And then we did this. And then I've read 2 books since we've been on hiatus, which, probably could read more, but I think it's starting a good trend. I've read The Secret Life or The Invisible Life of Addie LaRue. Very good book. It's fantasy, but like I would call it like a fairy tale, modern day fairy tale stuff.
Yeah.
Highly enjoyable. And it was I had started it when we were still doing this. It was a great mix or contrast from reading this, where the prose is very straightforward, not too like metaphorical, I guess you could say, or lyrical. And then that book was very, very, flowy and pretty words and metaphors and stuff like that.
Prose.
Yeah, and then you would get to like certain POV characters where the style of writing would change too, which is really neat. I really appreciated that. And then now I'm about to wrap up this book called 1Q84. And it's by a Japanese author. I forget who wrote it, but that one's been very different. It's not fantasy, but there's like magic in it also.
Fantasy elements.
Yeah. There's a word I heard to describe certain stories, and I feel like it fits it, but I can't. Like absurdism or something like that, where magical stuff happens, but there's no like rhyme or reason. Not like how I know, like in fantasy, there's like the whole like soft magic system. It's more of just like you don't ever find out what's going on. It's just stuff's happening. I've really enjoyed that. And then next up, I'm gonna read The Odyssey, since Christopher Nolan's making a movie about it. So
yeah,
I'm excited to apply. Like, I read a lot of fantasy growing up, and now I'm reading stuff outside the genre, and kind of critiquing, I guess, a fantasy book, how that impacts my lens that I'm looking through of not reading so much fantasy anymore.
Nice. No, that Japanese one kind of piqued my interest.
I think you would like it, man. I think you would really. That's a book that I would recommend to everybody. That's how much I'm enjoying it right now. The ending's got to be good. There's some weird stuff in it, but I feel like books, like, it's more acceptable to have weird stuff in a book than a movie. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, we read it. You read it. It's hard to one up that one.
Not much is gonna surprise you after that.
Yeah, but I feel like it's just more acceptable to read weird stuff in a book than it is like you watch a movie and something weird happens and people look at you like, why would you fucking tell me to watch that? You're like, sorry. But
nice.
That's a good one.
Well, yeah, that's all I got for this episode.
Yes, sir.
So
going by fast.
Yeah, we'll go ahead and take a look at these next chapters, kind of see how long they are, how much looks like we might have to say, and then I might post in the Discord once we kind of agree on what chapters we want to read. We have a couple of people in there that are talking once in a while, so if any of you guys are interested in just continuing to talk about the books or movie shows, where we're at in the read through, feel free to join us there on Discord. So
yes,
cool. All right, well, that's all I got for today. Thank you. See ya.